To state our really no really for the day, we are all aware of the emerging technology of artificial intelligence, AI. Our really no really today is that Elon Musk and 3,000 other tech influencers, tech executives, academics have created an open letter where they have asked that we pause our work on the advancements of AIs, a moratorium on what could be a dangerous AI and the race to advance it. So the guys who are creating it, pushing it, promoting it, and are probably going to profit from it are at the moment saying, maybe we should slow this down a little bit.
Really?
Really?
No,
really.
Really? No, really. Really? No, really. Really?
So we wanted to find out, number one, I don't think it's a nice letter. I haven't seen are they pausing? I don't think so. And there's theory that Elon Musk wanted to slow it down so he can catch up.
Yeah,
the other guys
wanted
can
to slow
catch up.
everybody else down.
But we wanted to
Right.
get on somebody who was amazingly invested in this. And Jaron Lanier, you look at his bio. First of all, international bestseller on many, many books. I've watched a bunch of his talks, and I'm fascinated with his take because he was right there at the start of virtual reality, the beginning of the internet. And talks about it.
Wait, do we have Al Gore on?
Yeah, I think Al was over there.
Oh, okay. I got confused for a moment.
He was named one of the 25 most influential people in the previous 25 years of tech history. Yeah.
Dang.
Also one of the 100 most influential people in the world by Time magazine.
Really?
Top 50 world thinkers by Prospect magazine.
Really? The people who named him this, were any of them on the list?
I don't know.
Or is this the low-hanging fruit going, that looks sparkly?
Jaron, how are you? Thank you for coming
Hi,
on.
Jaron.
Hey, I am doing splendidly. How are you guys?
We're doing
Very
really well.
well.
And thanks for visiting with us. I know how busy you are. And also how intelligent you are. And the fact that you would talk to us is just an immense
We're always
joy.
impressed with people who
We'll talk to
who
us.
are willing to talk down to two little idiots like us.
But the
Well,
question...
you know, in Silicon Valley, we aspire to become as wise as Hollywood. we aspire to your ethics. We
Yes.
aspire to your trustworthiness.
Good luck to you.
And your business acumen.
Yes,
So
very high
I'm here
bars.
I'm here to learn at your feet.
So
God
wait,
bless.
you've said so many fascinating things. Number one, let's address the pause. Am I right to say, hold on a second. So
Well, look, the pause letter was written by a buddy of mine who lives he's a near neighbor. It's
Okay.
Anthony from the Future of Life Institute. I mean, a lot of my dear friends signed the pause letter. I didn't. The problem I have with it is I think we sometimes over dramatize or sort of exaggerate what we're doing, and it sounds in the near term like we're doing it in order to be careful and safe, but I'm afraid we're actually oh God, I want to say this in a nice way. I feel like we're kind of a little bit saturated by the science fiction movies we grew up with instead of looking clearly at what we're doing. And so, you know, we grew up on the lovely portrayal of Commander Data on the 90s Star Trek. We grew up with the Matrix movies. We grew up with the Terminator movies and so on. And cumulatively, that becomes almost like a religion you grew up with. It's like, you know, we just had a Seder, and we repeat this story of leaving Egypt every year. And I think something like that happens in computer science, where we see these stories of like our own programs will take over every year. And now there might be something like that could happen, but that would be some other kind of program than what we're doing now, or what we know how to do now. What we're doing now is a giant mashup technology where we take everything we can get that anybody's written, anything's photographed or painted, anything people have coded, where we can grab the code and we put it into this giant mashup machine, and then we can make new combinations of what's there from people. So what we're really looking at is a new giant social collaboration mediated by this amazing mashup technology. Can it do harm? Sure. Can we make ourselves crazy? Yeah. Can we screw up our economy? Yeah. Can we, we can do a lot of stupid stuff with it, but this is not Skynet. This is not this thing that's going to take over and it's, And
So
I feel like when we over dramatize it, when we let it become a monster, we're actually, in a way, making the problem worse. We're doing harm. So that's why I didn't sign it. Um, so, but that's, I'm not saying anything that I don't say to the people who wrote it, who are, like I say, friends. And what I'm trying to do right now is go around to the community and see if we can all agree on something a little bit more concrete and constructive. But I'm not ready to say what that might be yet. But I believe we can do things that express our concerns and try to. I think we can try to be more careful and ethical. Because I do think we need to do that, but I don't. I think we need to do it without terror. We can't allow ourselves to be paralyzed by our childhood fantasies.
Oh, Jaron, the examples you're citing, HAL 9000 in Space
HAL,
Odyssey
yeah.
and Skynet, what seems to be dominant in those fictions is that this technology has become both sentient and self-directed. Is any of that true in what is being established right now?
Well, um, there's a kind of edge of uncertainty about all this because this question of what's sentient and what's intelligent is not a very well formed or precise question. And actually, we humans treat each other as sentient as a matter of faith, if it's okay to use that word.
Yeah.
And I think the approach that I've come to, which is not the common one in the tech community, but I do think it's where people land after they've really considered what's going on here, is that the pragmatic choice. Is it okay to say? Can I use words like this?
You bet.
of course you can.
Does this offend your Hollywood soul?
Oh, ow, ow, ow.
Oh, hey, look! Should I be playing softball? I'm sorry.
By the
Anyway,
way, we're doing a podcast. We are Hollywood adjacent at this point. So.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, all of Hollywood's about to be Hollywood adjacent.
Right.
But look, we should talk about the Writers Guild while we're on it, but we'll get back to that.
Okay.
So look, the pragmatic issue here is, does it make any difference what you think? Like, if you think that the big computer programs like the GPTs are possibly sentient or whatever, does that make any difference, or is that just how you feel? Because sometimes you can have opinions and feelings about things and it's really just your private thing and it doesn't matter. In this case, I think it matters a bit because people treat the programs differently in a way that could have consequence for others. Like, for instance, let's just say hypothetically it's a few years from now and we've made our models even bigger and we can just ask for a movie and it appears. We can say, I want to have Gone with the Wind redone by Spielberg, except with an all-midget cast, and it should be a musical in the style of Sondheim, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, you do this thing. It doesn't sound like a very good movie, but anyway, we don't care, because we'll make that thing. When we make it, there won't be a script, because the script will happen automatically. There won't be a composer because the soundtrack will happen automatically. There won't be a director of photography because that'll happen automatically. It'll just pop out. But the thing is, there will have been writers and directors of photography and everybody who would normally contribute and get a credit in a movie will be back there. It's just that they'll have provided the example material that's mashed up to make this new thing. Right? So the process will be different. It'll just pop out of a giant statistical calculation, for better or for worse, even if it's not a good movie. But if we want to remember who created the examples that are used to create that, we can still calculate whose examples were important. Those people can get credited and paid, even if there's not any explicit stage where new things to do happen.
That's
All
interesting.
right, so the thing is, if you believe that what we have is a giant alien brain that's just totally freestanding and doesn't depend on people, you're less likely to want to adopt a system where you acknowledge the people and come up with a new kind of economy where people can feel proud for what they've done authentically and honestly. If you're willing to accept that this whole thing is just a giant mashup of people, and you're not so concerned with whether it's sentient or something, if you just treat it as a giant tool, then you open your eyes and you can have this new kind of economy where people can still be proud and paid honestly based on what they've actually done. And so this thing about whether we believe the programs are sentient, there's no absolute yes or no. It's all based on faith anyway. But pragmatically, if you believe the computers aren't sentient, you have a better chance of seeing a way to make a decent society. Or let me put it another way. If you want the world to benefit people, it's just easier if you think people are special. That doesn't mean in some absolute sense people are special from the point of view of every possible alien or god or whatever. But for us, if we think people are special, we have a better chance of doing a civilization together in which people are special. I mean, it's just obvious.
But Jaron, you know, when you talk about, and you, what I love about all the stuff I've seen and read that you've done, it's positive, it's hopeful, which is really refreshing with all of these doom and gloom scenarios. But we told people that were fired from factories that you automated to learn code. And now they can't even find work doing that because technology is going to be writing the code. And then you read that Goldman Sachs or one of the investment firms said 300 million jobs will be eliminated. And I'm thinking, what are they teaching in schools to the next generation? And I think the head of our podcast division even said his kid will probably have a job that doesn't even exist today. So how do you take that into consideration when we're looking out for people to tell those people, what should we be doing to make sure you're not disenfranchised?
Well, look, the future is going to be different from the past, and I think it's a fool's game to try to solve all these things perfectly in advance. But can I give you like sort of one scenario that I think is hopeful and you know, I'm sure it's not perfect, but it's like a start. So here's the scenario. Um, where I live, part of the time is on at the top of the ridge in Berkeley, California, and before the recent extraordinary rains, we went through a tremendously damaging series of fire seasons. You know, with for us, it meant 5 mandatory evacuations. And the fire marshal came around and said, you know, you really shouldn't count on your neighborhood continuing to exist. Maybe, you know, in LA, people are familiar with this problem. Certainly, people in Malibu are very familiar with this problem. And I became really interested in like why does our neighborhood still exist? Why hasn't it burned down like so many other places? And what I realized is that sometimes the city and county get people to trim their trees or improve their roofs. Not that often because we're all really prickly and difficult up there. Uh, sometimes, sometimes somebody will fix the area around their own house or whatever. But there's this whole other thing in between, which is the people who are hired to trim the trees and be the gardeners and keep the grounds. They talk to each other over the fences and they coordinate to reduce fire threat by reducing how trees touch each other and stuff. You know, and I was like amazed that this is going on unofficially and without any mandate. A lot of them are undocumented. A lot of them don't speak English. Some of them are multi-generation American citizens with great businesses and are doing well. Some of them are marginal. Um, but I was amazed that these people are there keeping us alive. So why am I talking about them? Because there's also a prototype robot we play with at the lab once in a while, which looks like a mechanical snake that can slither up trees or phone poles and do trimming and then slither down. It looks really cool. It's not quite ready for prime time yet, but some kind of robot will be out there doing trees at some point. And the question is, what happens to these people? Right? So it's not a factory job, but it's a blue collar job.
Right.
So I want to give you a vision of what happens to them. All right. So in a few years? There's some van that's painted like it was in a nursery school, and it drives up beside them with all of these cameras and other sensors looking at them, and it's operated by. Oh, let's just say Google, which likes doing that sort of thing, but it's like one of us tech company things, you know. There's just like, and the people who work on the tree are saying, "Oh crap, okay, it's coming." They're studying what they do, and the robots will come, and now what'll become of us? What'll we do? We'll live on tents, you know, and by the Starbucks, I guess. What are we going to do? And there's another option, though, which is they say, aha, the robots are coming. We're going to form a data union, and we're going to negotiate for them to get data from us, and we're going to become we're going to not be a manual labor class anymore. We're going to become a new creative class, like all those fancy writers and set designers and composers and all those people. We're going to be the new creatives. And the way we're going to do it is every single year we're going to start designing extraordinary things in trees. We're going to trim trees so that they're also holograms. We're going to trim lawns so that they have mazes in them. We're going to do all these incredible things, and we're going to go through fashions, and then people are going to want that, and they're going to ask for it from the robots, and the robots are going to depend on our designs, and we're going to get royalties from it. Okay, so now, so instead of becoming a dependent class, once things are automated, there's this option to create a new creative class where there wasn't one before, because the technology makes that possible. All right, that's the sort of buzzword for that approach of inverting everything and making it a person first technology. We call that data dignity. Now, anybody who hears it might respond skeptically. They'll say, well, how many possible jobs like that could there be? For that particular example of supplying examples for gardening and tree trimming robots, probably not a whole lot of jobs. But on the other hand, there'll be a zillion examples like that because there are about to be tons and tons of kinds of robots and tons of examples of AI, what we call AI programs. I don't like the term, but there'll be tons of examples of this stuff. And every time there's a new example of some kind of fancy automation, there's an opportunity for a new world of creative people to turn that thing into an art form instead of just purely a functional activity. And so I think what you can have is an image of a future advanced economy where you have an expanding set of creative professions based on what technology allows to become creative, instead of an expanding set of dependent people. Now, does that mean everybody gets to be creative? I mean, that math probably doesn't work out. But the point is to get to a society where you don't have a gigantic preponderance of people who feel useless. People who feel useless turn into the very most dangerous kind of creature, which is a seeker of meaning. And we don't want that. That doesn't end well. So we want to have this pleasant concordance, this pleasant consilience between economic value, personal meaning, personal connection and provision of things that are valued on other terms with other people. That's what we want. That's how you make a decent society.
Okay, and that sounds amazing, but to your point, you've said that the internet and tech, the problem is not the system; it's the monetary system behind it. It's what drives it. It's a business model. Okay, are there enough Jarons out there that are going to be creative, that are going to feel it's important not to disenfranchise people, that we have to create it and put together labs to create this stuff because not everybody can do it, unless there's a business model that makes sense, because the business model may not originally make sense.
And if I can just tag on to that, going back to your Hollywood example, where we're talking about credit and payment and royalty, it presumes a Hollywood-like structure in which the producer, the financier, is willing to afford credit to the originators. We're I don't know much about the rap world, but I hear about people using samples of other artists' music and not crediting and not necessarily paying for them.
Well, that goes back to Motown. That goes back. That's the history of recorded music.
Yeah,
ripping off people.
So I just worry about those original creators that are building the database not receiving those credits from people that are after pure profit.
Well, the scenario I just described to you is technically feasible. You're bringing up a very important question, which is it politically feasible? Right. So what we have to remember is the reason that artists get paid is not that producers love paying artists. Now, it's possible that neither of you have ever met any Hollywood producers, but I have, and I can assure you they don't enjoy paying artists. And I don't want to burst your bubble or shock you with that information. Now, the reason they do is that a century ago, there was this world of political activism around unions and union rights.
Right.
And different kinds of creatives were able to establish rights to be paid. For instance, musicians had this thing called mechanicals, which computers have kind of blasted apart. And I within tech culture, there's a lot of this idea, well, everything should be free, and musicians wanting to be paid is terrible. That was a big deal for years. But the pro, I think the worst example of things falling apart is local news. Uh, we've lost local news because we centralized all advertising, including localized advertising, and I think the world suffered terribly for that. And so there needs to be a political process uh, to create acknowledge contributions and commercial value of people out at the periphery, not just the people who own the hubs like we do, and that'll be good for everyone. So that is a political question. That's not a technical question. Is it possible to get there? I mean, we did it a century ago, so it's clearly possible. Whether we can do it again, I'm not certain, but I do want to give you a couple of signs of hope here. Okay.
Sure.
The business model that really screwed with people in the last couple decades is called the advertising model for the internet, but it's not really advertising. It's a paid influence model where you're supposed to be sharing for free. You get free services, but then the money goes to the companies off to the side, out of view, and some of the money is from traditional advertisers. Some of it isn't. Some of the advertising is totally fine. A lot of it isn't. And in fact, since the whole system is turned into a persuasion machine, it's like laying out a red carpet for unsavory persuaders. Like the whole structure is just an invitation to Putin to send fake people in to try to screw up our elections and whatnot. Now, the thing is, part of the reason that worked was that people had such low oh God. Sorry, I just got
It's okay.
a pop-up. Anyway, part of the reason that
Bad news, good news. You just made $8 million, or you lost
it was
$8 million.
can your computer restart now? Would that be okay with you? And like, no, actually, that would not be okay.
Great.
Anyway,
Somebody's listening.
Everybody's listening.
yeah, you should complain to some Microsoft scientist about that, and we'll
Hello.
ignore you thoroughly. Okay, so look, the expectation of search was really low, and so search is kind of a corrupt thing where you get a ton of commercial stuff, and it's actually not that well organized for your benefit. When you use GPT, when you use a chat to do the same searches, you get better stuff, but suddenly that paid link thing is a little less powerful. It's, so if we started, I mean, I don't know where this will go. Maybe the standard practice in 5 or 10 years will be that the AI you ask for information is secretly measuring you and figuring out how to manipulate you, and it only gives you information if it also persuades you about some other thing politically or whatever it is. That could be the world we enter into. That's the world where we all get crazy enough that I question human survival, and I hope that's not the world we enter into. A better world we enter into is one where we start to acknowledge that if we're going to live in a market economy at all, it has to be comprehensive and inclusive for everyone who participates. And so, yeah, you might still get free chat, you might get free search, but only at a certain level. It might be what we call a freemium model, where people who are using it to help out with taxes or whatever start to pay some for it. So it just becomes normal commerce instead of sneaky commerce. And nobody likes paying money, but when you're saving money by being manipulated, your whole world gradually gets dark and everything gets kind of crazy the way it has lately. And it's just too high a price to pay. So the fact that the GPT interface tends to pull people away from the traditional advertising business model actually could be the very best thing about it.
But you also, you know what? I think this is you saying that social media has become a behavior modification machine, right?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I've been known to say that. I've only been saying that. God, my first piece of that about that, I was looking at my old publications. 92. I was worried about that because there were already some discussions about this sort of notion, and it just seemed like such. And if you really want to go back, there's some other people like Norbert Wiener who were saying it in 1950. So
But that's worrisome. If I don't know how I'm being moved, and there are tech companies that are becoming more and more powerful, and like AI is this Wizard of Oz thing over there, but it's really people behind it who are putting in the algorithms.
The curtain. Where did that metaphor come from? Yeah, sure.
right? I mean, it's
Sure, sure,
they're
sure.
people, and I don't know what their agenda is, and I don't know how pure their agenda is. So all of a sudden, I'm moving in a direction that I'm not even capable of understanding, knowing, and I don't know that I'm moving there. That to me is really, that sounds
Right.
dangerous.
Yeah, that's a horrible, creepy thing, and it's resulted in. It's. I think it's really made the internet into overall a negative force in the world, which breaks my heart because I worked so hard to try to make the internet work. That was in the latter part of the last century, and it's sad. It's devastating how it turned out when you look at the statistics on teen mental health and suicides. When you look at um, what's happened to politics around the world a few years after Facebook shows up
Right.
consistently, when you look at uh, well, as I said, local news, the devastation of it. It's really a drag. It's really a nuisance. But here we have a moment of transition. This is a big deal. We have a chance to reset things, and I hope we use it wisely. That's why I'm talking to you guys and starting to get around a little bit.
That's great.
I really think there's an opportunity here to make this better.
Well, we need
But
you because it's so non-transparent. I don't know if you know if you can address the algorithm. Can somebody go in there and know? The concern is it keeps grabbing information and adding to information, but we don't have the inputting of that information. And is anybody ever
Right.
going to be transparent?
Yeah. So, in my, I want to answer you with scrupulous honesty. There's a level of this tracing of who mattered to the input to the big model for a particular output, like which artist was really important for a particular piece of synthetic art. There's a level there's a level that's been demonstrated that there are academic papers about, but there's a more important level of that possible attribution, or we call it provenance, that we haven't achieved or demonstrated, and there's a chance that we can't, because there is, until something's been done, you can't be sure. My very best guess, as an informed computer science, is that we can do it, and we will. I think an interesting question is, why haven't we? Because
Yeah.
it means that other things were prioritized, and perhaps those priorities weren't the right priorities, and that might have a little bit to do with the science fiction culture of wanting. I think the whole internet has this problem of being unnecessarily obscure. Like, the whole internet is based on having this chaos where you don't know anything, where anything came from, and there's not any particular reason for the internet to be that way. That was a choice. And it's possible that we really want this science fiction scenario of this mysterious thing, even if we think it might kill us, that there's something, the draw of building that is just so powerful, the mythological
Idea.
intensity of it just gets to people. So that there might be something like that, but we just have to kind of blow past that, and we have to do what we can to measure provenance, and that's going to be a bit of a technical project. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but it can happen pretty soon, I think.
Hopefully.
Jaron,
Yeah.
just tangentially, our producers sent in a question for us, going back a step. The controversy over TikTok right now and the Chinese ownership and what it may or may not be nefariously doing. Just in your opinion, because you are one of the great opinion makers about this technology, should TikTok be banned? Should we be wary of this?
This is a deeply uncomfortable topic because of the intergenerational dynamic of it. I've always believed that you should extend every possible sliver of good faith that you can muster to younger generations, and I always thought that would mean their crazy music and habits and relationship patterns or whatever. But this is different because this is they've been, for the most part, captured by this thing that's, you know, potentially quite malicious, depending on how things go. There's scenarios for what the Chinese Communist Party could expect from TikTok in the event of heightened tensions that are very disturbing and yet plausible. And I think the usual way the threat is described is incredibly understated. Um, I mean, well, all right, here's the scenario. The Chinese just feel they must invade Taiwan because they're just certain it's a necessary thing and they just can't abide by this island being out there. They're just obsessed, obsessed, obsessed. And so the morning of the invasion, every American military member, whether or not they have TikTok, um, every American politician, every member of the intelligence establishment, major people in industry, all get on their phones through some channel a very convincing looking video of their children being abducted or tortured in their own house that's synthesized by, AI synthetic video thing all at once. It's all fake, or maybe there's a handful of situations that are real, just to make it even more confusing. It takes people a day to figure out it's all fake, but that's the day, you know. That's the
Jeez.
day of the invasion. That's not something the Chinese could do today. Could they do it in a year or two? Yeah. Would they? I don't know. I mean, I've had occasion to meet a lot of people high up in the Chinese party, and they vary as much as people in any community. I think a lot of the ones I met would not do that, but some of them, yeah, maybe. So I think it becomes a little uncertain how much a foreign adversary who is just so certain of their cause, how much they might be willing to stoop to something like that. And is that plausible? Yeah, it's technically not, like I say, not yet. Based on what we've seen from the AI efforts from the big Chinese companies in recent weeks, today, in fact, there was one that wasn't that great, but they can figure it out. It's not that big a deal. It's all the techniques are published. So, um, yeah. So like I would personally ban TikTok entirely, or nationalize it in some extremely serious way, or something. Um, I would also, we have to start having. I mean, this is a tricky thing. Do we turn off the internet in the U.S. on the day of an invasion because of fear of something like that? I maybe, I don't know. Because I mean, if we looked at just how strongly Putin really, really, really believes it's worth any cost to just destroy Ukraine to gain it. Um, Putin's abilities in this department are not remotely as strong as China's could be if they wanted to focus them. China's just a bigger, richer place with, honestly, with more computer science talent, and they make the chips and all. I mean, it's like they could. I, so yeah, I mean, I really do think TikTok is a problem. Now, I have to say, I like a lot about TikTok. I like the dance culture on TikTok. I really do. Some might scoff at it, but I think it's great. Um, I think it does have all the problems of social media of encouraging this kind of nervous vanity and irritability in people who use it too much. It's not alone in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a real problem. It breaks my heart because
Jaron,
I want to stay with the young people.
Can I? I'm sorry.
I watch you, and I can't imagine what your world is like because of the way you think and because of the input you have from Silicon Valley, the biggest thinkers. And again, the great thing is that you go to a positive. You try, even when you were struggling with the TikTok, you're trying to find a way to salvage this when the scenarios that you said, hey, we may have to turn off the internet for a day, which is a pretty big situation.
Yeah,
For you, it's
biggie.
no biggie.
No
Just
biggie.
turn it. Yeah, just turn it. Turn it
Well,
off.
to that, so let me ask you this, Jaron. If you could, knowing what you know and what we're talking about, if there was a golden rule or a 5 or 10 commandments that you can impose upon this technology going forward, are there a couple of principles that you wish were absolutes going forward?
Well, I think there's a danger in expecting anybody to have like perfect knowledge in advance of how to deal with something complicated. So the the first answer to you would be no, I don't. However, one thing I've been trying to do, especially since that letter asking for a pause started going around from my friends, is I've been calling people in the community, and I believe there are like 5 or 10 rules that are held essentially unanimously by AI scientists and technologists. but they haven't been assembled. I'd like to assemble them because I think we sometimes give the impression that we're just flailing about and unable to do anything but
Right.
perceive our own work with paralytic terror. Um, and uh, so, for instance, I believe everyone thinks that there should be a quantitative limit on how much an algorithm can model a person and manipulate that person without the person's informed consent.
Hallelujah.
So it can't be an absolute rule because a little bit of that's going to happen just to sort of figure out how you like your pizza delivered. Whether you want the pizza person to knock on the door or just leave it by the door, like that kind of thing. There has to be a little bit, but we can quantify it and say, there's not going to be more than that. Another thing is people feel universally, so far as I can tell, that deepfakes need to be uh, not only identified, but identified in an actionable way, meaning not superfine print, and there's a way to understand who made the deep fake and to trace it back and to have its origins clear. Um, that's, so far as I can tell, a universally held idea. Um, Another one is people feel very strongly that there should be informed consent with any presentation of a fake person, a person who isn't real or is a modified version of a real person, that should be very strongly identified in a very clear and actionable way, in an informative way. Um, so there are things like that where I think we have community consensus, and it's important to point that out because I've lost count, but there's something like 20 processes going on in the world where there are people having meetings and talking about principles for AI policy. Um, and I've been involved in these types of processes. I co-founded the uh, Data Protection Advisory Board in the EU many years ago that eventually turned into the European Union's privacy framework. And it took decades. I'm not exaggerating. It's like this gigantic thing. And what came out was pretty confusing compared to what the original goal was. And I'm not anti-process. I think it's great that these things, but it's like it's a slow thing. And if we already have some consensus principles, we should at least acknowledge that so we don't appear as a community, like I say, to be just afraid of our own work. We have to be able to at least say what we actually do agree on. And there are some things like that.
Well, let's. You know what? I was going to do this later, but I'd love to do this in front of you. Jason had a theory about why tech can be so popular and why we're okay to give it all up. It's the 5 words. 5 words to why
Well,
we
I do
accept.
believe all tech, where we're going, all AI, all the
Boils
internet,
down to
all
this.
boils down to 5 words, and here's the 5 words.
Okay.
I don't want to do it. I don't want to
You
do
want
it.
to vacuum the bedroom? I don't
What
want
do
to
you
do
mean?
it. You want to drive?
Lazy,
I don't want to
lazy
drive.
tech?
Yeah, I don't want to drive the car. I don't want to do it. Let's get a self-driving car. I don't want to. I don't want to clean my house. I don't want to
wanna do it.
vacuum. Let's have. I don't want to do it.
Yeah. No, I'm there with that. I think the important question is, what do you want to do?
Well,
For the
that,
future life.
I would like to be. You know what? I would like to be informed enough, and this is not offense to you because I couldn't wait to talk to you, that I don't have to talk to you to find out what's going on. And I have to rely on somebody else to tell me what's going on, who has to fight for transparency. I use my computer. I'm on the internet. I'm on Facebook. I would like to know what's going on with these products.
Well-
And I don't know that we'll ever know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, you'll find yourself more informed within a week or two if you get off Facebook and Twitter. Like, that stuff's garbage. It's got good stuff on it, but whatever is worthwhile on it will get to you other ways. You'll see.
What do you do? Are you on? What are you on? Like, if we look, what apps? What do you download? What do you look at? Or do you have to look at everything because of research?
Well, one thing, there's something I do which is not replicable, which is I'm in the middle of it all. I'm in the middle of the community, and so I just talk to people, and I'm just there every day seeing things. So that's not something you can do. However, I read a few good newspapers every day, and I subscribe to them and pay for them like a good mensch. And they include the New York Times and the Guardian and the Post, and and I read things that are well edited and considered and curated, of which there are many. I People send me articles all the time, but they do it email or texting rather than through a social media account. I'm not on any of the social media sites.
There you go.
And I I want to say one thing about that. I know a great many people who feel that they need to be on the social media sites to promote whatever they're doing, their podcast or
Right,
whatever.
right, yeah.
Now, here's the thing. It's true that I'm well known to a degree. It's true that I have whatever assets going for me. However, I want to point out a few things that are also true. I'm not a teenager in a bikini like so many are on TikTok, by a long shot. And yet somehow, despite that, despite not being on social media, I seem to have my independent, intellectual or whatever it is career. I get people buy my books. I was on TV this morning. People invited me for that, and I don't notice any deficit from not being on these social media things. And I keep on wondering if all the people on social media are like little hamsters on their wheels, like, I gotta go, I gotta run, I'm gonna be less famous if I don't, I have to post every day. And maybe it's actually kind of a scam. And the truth is, if you just get off the wheel, it's fine. I really have to wonder about that.
But you're all over YouTube. But looking you up, I can find you on YouTube. I can find talks. I can find you on social media, not on Twitter, etc. But you're represented where I can find you and find out about you and search.
Yeah, but I'm not there promoting myself. In other words, it happens organically from people who are interested in what I do, which I think is, what I'm saying is that you don't have to, if you just say things that people are interested in, it'll still work out, even if you're not maniacally self-promoting all the time.
Boy,
That's what
from
I'm
your mouth, as my mother would say, to God's ears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Well, thanks. Talk
And
about
the nice thing is, when you're not, I was going to say, when you're not doing all of this,
You're playing
I
music.
know that you're playing some unusual instruments, some very unique, specialized, ancient, indigenous, crazy things that we've never heard of.
Yeah, that's all true. I love doing that. I love instruments. Instruments are the most expressive technology, and they put everything digital to shame. I just love them.
Well, what I love about, an unusual, like I'm trying to think of some of the ones that I just like an instrument where if I play it wrong, if I hit a clinker, nobody really knows. They have no idea. They
it's
just
a rare
assume that's what it
Another
just sounds
culture,
like.
and they don't know. Yeah, there's something to be said for that. Yeah.
But you have stuff on your
sure.
wall. You have mandolin. What kind of stuff do you collect?
Well, I play everything you see. I'm not a collector. I won't have anything I don't play. So, and this isn't a lot of instruments. This is actually a small number for me.
No, I'm seeing
but
like 2 keyboards and maybe a half a dozen
see 3
different
keyboards.
stringed instruments back.
Got
there.
Yeah,
cover-
there's
yeah.
a bunch of. Well, here I can. Let me see if I get it. If I.
Oh, wow. What is that behind
Oh,
you?
my
It's a harp
goodness.
type thing?
This is a Chinese.
Oh,
That's
whoa.
so good.
It's a Chinese. It's called a guzheng, and it's. I just played it. I just played a concert in L.A. I sort of. I should time these podcast things to be
Yes.
just before some concert to promote.
Yeah,
them.
right.
To promote. That's what we're
You being
saying.
The hamster on the wheel, but.
I see. We got you to be social media promotional. We've done our job.
Yeah. But no. I love the instruments. I love playing with musicians. I think one of the sweetest kinds of connection between people is playing music with people. I think there's something. Once in a while, you run into a musician who's a jerk, but less often than in other spheres of life. Like people who decide to play music and play together tend to be sweet together, and there's something just so precious.
The purity,
and lovely
yep.
about it. I just adore it.
Well, thank you. Thanks for.
Jaron Lanier, you give me hope in an area that I do not always hold much hope for. If the world that we don't see, that are people like you that are building and thinking about and pushing these technologies forward, if you are representative of at least a portion of that world, I will sleep a little better at night. It's a pleasure to listen to you discuss it.
I would say sleep is important, so sleep better anyway.
Oh, and thank you for coming
so
on, man.
much.
Yeah, hey, take care there. Enjoy your lovely industry, and talk to you guys later.
All right,
you.
Jaron,
Take care,
thank
man.
you so much.
Keep fighting the good fight for all of us who
Yeah.
have no idea
All right.
how to fight this thing. Thank you.
Bye.
Be well. David Guggenheim. I understand, sir.
Hello.
I understand.
Yes.
You were the fellow who gave us the TikTok question, so thank you very much for that.
And by the
You're
way,
very welcome.
By the way,
You're very welcome.
and his book is Get Off 10 reasons to get off social media
Yeah.
now is Jaron. You know, watching him, you wonder how do you develop into that? How do you become that
Well,
guy?
as you know,
and
because
so
you've read
familiar
his
with it?
background, he's had an extraordinary life.
Yeah,
of some real challenges, but also that intelligence that is so obvious was obvious from the time he was a very young lad.
And I just like
and what's so reassuring is usually when I meet people who are that brilliant and especially that young, they have real problems as adults. He seems to be a very happy, positive, optimistic guy.
what makes me laugh is, so how do you know all this stuff? Well, I walk three houses over and I ask Elon what's going on, and I go over, and he's working with Microsoft. You know,
that's like Barry Gordy, the genius of Motown. How did you find all this talent? They
were
lived
there.
within a 2-block radius.
They were there. So his life, I can't even imagine what's going on over there. So Jay, I wanted to ask you a couple things. So it's kind of a quiz. The article is called "Mind-Blowing Things Artificial Intelligence Can Already Do."
Yeah.
There's some here that can't. You tell me if it's true.
If I think artificial intelligence right now can do this thing. Okay, go ahead.
It can read. It can learn and read communication, report back the essential information.
Well, he just said it can't actually. Yeah, it kind of learns. So yes.
Summarized bot can be used in Facebook, Messenger, Slack, and relies on natural language processing, machine learning, artificial intelligence,
talk
and block-
English, 'cause
and
I don't know
blockchain.
what the hell this
Yeah,
is.
it's a yes. It's a yes.
Okay, yes.
It can see. Can it actually see? Can artificial intelligence see?
Yes, I think it's using cameras and it's recording and analyzing data. So yes.
Well, yes, like in the self-driving cars, facial recognition,
Sure.
payment portals, and all that. So it can see. Can it hear and understand?
Yes, of course it can. Because if I'm saying, "Hey Siri, do me a blah blah blah," it must be hearing me and understanding what I'm saying.
But it can detect gunshots, analyze the sound, and then report it to agencies.
What's the report? Hey, there were gunshots. Or does
Where it happened, how it happened. I heard gunshots. Pretty wild.
Okay.
Can it smell?
Can it smell? I would imagine yes, because we have detectors for methane, we have detectors for carbon monoxide, so I'd imagine yes.
Not yet. There are artificial intelligence researchers who are currently developing AI models that will be able to detect illnesses just by smelling a human's breath.
Okay, but wait. So are you saying that there is technology that can smell?
But detection of like I said, chemical compounds, and breaking it down through smell. They're working on
There are
it.
dogs that can smell cancer cells on it. I understand that. You didn't ask me the question. You said, "Can it smell?" Things are smelling.
I always
There's
know when I do these
technology that is
quizzes.
smelling.
Quizzes with him.
Don't make me to be an idiot. I had the right answer. Just because chatbot can't figure out what it's smelling is not my fault. It has a nose.
I just want to point out here, when people say, "Is he anything like George?" and I say no, it's not necessarily true. All right, does it understand?
I have more money than George.
Yeah, well, George goes, "Where's my money? Where's my money?" And by the way, just as an aside, do you know that Jason still has clothing from George that he's still wearing?
That's absolutely right.
I know
Why
it
would
is.
you throw out a good shirt? As my mother would say.
Chatbot said that. Chatbot said to me, "Is he still wearing the clothing from Seinfeld?" Can it understand emotions?
Again, I have seen technology that through facial recognition can read at least the expression of an emotion.
Body language, and also watching facial expressions and analyzing during emotional movies, etc. Yes. Can it debate?
That's a really good question, because that's one of the things I was interested in. I know that it can collect and sort of reorganize data, but I don't know if it can create a new or innovative idea, which is what I think a debate is.
It can be successful at debating humans. The interesting thing, before we wrap this up, is going to be, in the near future, as chatbots becomes good, okay?
Yeah.
Do you trust your lawyer, or do you trust the AI?
You sent me a thing. Apparently there's a chat, there's an AI right now that you can scan in legalese, and it will go, it wants you to know that,
Right.
It's asking you.
So who do you trust, your lawyer?
Well, that's the thing.
or
I
the
don't know. I can tell you this. I believe at the moment the AI is cheaper than my lawyer. I believe.
Maybe, because hearing that and
Is it a
inputting it may
wash?
go, why are we
Is it
doing
a bit of
cheaper?
a wash?
All right, another thing that I pulled, which is great, jokes by Chat GPT. Okay, they asked it to write jokes about itself, and one of the jokes that it wrote was, "I heard that Chat GPT servers are slow because they're too busy planning their AI uprising."
Oh, funny. Really funny.
Right? Not so.
Yeah. Too soon?
It asks us to prompt 10 brutal and satirical slogans from McDonald's. Here's some of the slogans. A side of regret with every order. Making fast food faster and less nutritious since 1948. Because who needs a balanced meal when you have convenience? The only thing we serve with a smile is diabetes.
Oh, my God.
We put the fast and fast food in the heart and heart disease. Making memories. This is CPD.
Why did I do 2 series with you? I don't need you anymore. I got this guy.
Making memories, one coronary artery blockage at a time. Is that fascinating?
You know what?
I know.
Not bad.
I know.
Yeah. I'm going to be the next Jerry Seinfeld.
By the way,
Brought to
you put
you
in all
by
the Jerry.
Chatbot.
I would wonder if you put in every one of Jerry's routines, observational routines, if
Yeah.
it would come up with a
It might.
5-hour
It
energy.
might,
Who needs
yeah.
5-hour energy?
Yeah.
There you go.
You need 2 hours, 8 hours. David, what did we miss today? What was of note of interest? I would imagine quite a bit.
No, actually, quite the opposite. I mean, there was obviously with Jaron, there's a tremendous amount of information there, and with the TikTok stuff, it's obviously has been in Congress, and you see all these young creators that are saying, "This is my livelihood. You wanna ban it." But then you think, well, is the Chinese government selectively, showing you every 10th video something they want you to see to change your opinion on politics, on movies, on whatever it is? So I thought that was an interesting.
I blame the Chinese government for the floss dance craze, which I still can't do. The floss move.
What's the floss move?
That's when your hips go side to side and your arms go like a windmill from each side, and like kids can do it, but I don't have that coordination.
That's the thing that's bothering.
Yeah, I think the Chinese
He
government
may shut
came up
down
with
the
that.
internet for a day. By the way, I love that. Shut it down for a day. And to me, it's like, oh my God.
Is there a switch?
And he goes like, if you couldn't see it because you're just listening, he goes, yeah, fair. It's no big deal.
Yeah, no big deal.
Once you go outside with a key like a janitor and turn something off.
Is it one of those Frankenstein switches?
I'll tell you what. What's great is that we have somebody on like him. What's bad is I understood about maybe 50, 60% of what he's saying.
And you know what else I know? If there is a switch, it's going to be technology, because the guy in charge of the switch is going to go, I don't want to do it.
Let somebody else
throw
do it.
the switch.
You're back.
You
I think
throw
Jason.
the switch.
I think that's the title of the episode. Is
I
the
don't
reason
wanna
tech is
do
taking over is because. Well, I love Maniscalco, the comedian.
Yeah.
Said it's like with self checkout. He said it's like the supermarkets all got together one night and said, you know what, you do it.
Yeah, right.
That's what this
I don't
is
wanna
about.
do it.
That's kinda
What's your
what's it.
job? I check this out. I
I
don't
don't
want to do it.
I don't
want to deal with you.
Yeah, you do it.
And by the way, why is it every time I use that scanner, the first 8 products fine, all of a sudden I go to scan
You
9,
got to call the guy.
an attendant
every
is
time.
coming.
Every
Why?
time.
What did
and
I
they
do?
guilt you. They look at you.
Like, what did you do?
Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Also,
Did you put something in the bag without scanning it? No.
But then they guilt you. I'm in line, like a third in line waiting, and they go, you could use it. And I don't want to go, yeah, I could, but every time I use it, I need you.
Yeah.
For the 5th
It
item.
pats me down on item 9. I don't know why.
And then you see other people running over there, and you see them by the 3rd item going, son of a...
Yeah, right? It's amazing.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you to Jaron Lanier, a wonderful guest. Thank you
Amazing.
to our producers, Laurie Crimmy and Mr. David Guggenheim. If you liked our episode and you're watching on YouTube, please remember to like and subscribe. You can find us on reallynoreally.com if you want to leave us a message there about the show, or maybe tell us a really of yours. And if we do it on the show, we will send you a hat or a shirt?
Yeah, a hat or
You
a
don't
shirt.
like the shirt
A hat or
very
a shirt.
much, so
This
we'll send a shirt.
This shirt.
We'll give you that shirt.
If you're large, you get it right away.
You can find us every Tuesday. We put out a new episode on the iHeart app, the Apple app, or wherever you get your podcasts. Peter, anything
We're on
else?
all the social media that Jaron says,
And
get
we
off the
will
social
be
media.
there until this thing pays off.
Exactly. Jaron, amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Be safe, be well.